evening, everyone. This is Vikas, presently working as PhD Physics at Ganga International School, Sauda, Delhi. Um, I'm delighted to welcome one of the most, like, what can I say, eminent personality that I've ever met in my life, and one of the most that kind of personality who have always imparted something good in me, and who have always tried to do good in the well-being of the people. So, I'm taking immense pride uh, in welcoming Prerna Chauhan, ma'am. She is principal of Ganga International School, Sauda, Delhi. So, just to give you a bit brief intro about her. So, she is a dedicated, resourceful, and innovative educator with an illustrious three-decade career encompassing academic leadership, administration, and comprehensive training. She is holding an MSc degree in chemistry, a B.Ed, and DISM qualification with a specialized focus on organic chemistry. She serves as a pedagogical leader in a Ganga International School, Sauda, Delhi, that I have already mentioned, while also contributing as a CBSE resource person. She is actively associated with Climate Reality Project India and South Asia Foundation for Green School Campus Program, and awarded as Distinguished Educator for showing outstanding leadership by emphasizing the importance of 21st century skills 2023-24 by Logioids recognitions such as the Pratham Jijabai Shikshak Samman 2023 by Vishwaroop Education, the Uma's Shiksha Gaurav Puraskar for 2023 for Best Principal of the Year, and Dr. Kalam Leadership Excellence Award by Dr. Kalam International Foundation in 2023 has been under her educational excellence. So I'm again delighted and elated to invite you, ma'am. The topics that ma'am is going to cover are teaching learning cycle, learning outcomes, 21st century competence, in which she'll talk about different kind of pedagogies and assessments. So I welcome you again, ma'am. You can start off with your.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vikas. And it's my pleasure to be present on such a respectable platform. And I would like to thank to Sudhagar sir, DKIF, which you are a school and me associated for a long time. And I hope in future this association will be very, very long. So I would like to begin my presentation, that is learning outcome and pedagogies. So when we begin the teaching learning cycle, this cycle has its own importance, and teaching learning cycle can be used for any content area in which the goal is to create motivational learning context in which students are actively engaged in exploring, discussing, and synthesizing information. The teaching learning cycle approach to instructional planning capitalizes on what is known about how people learn and design to cause lasting changes in the student's conceptual understanding. If we see the teaching learning cycle, you will find the very first stage of teaching learning cycle is LOs. Now, what is LOs? LOs are learning outcome which we have to decide before starting our teaching process, like after setting learning outcome, what we are getting from the particular learning cycle. So each step in the teaching learning cycle serve different purpose and incorporate especially structures activity. What makes this type of lesson format particularly effective is its emphasis on active engagement of learner that is require students to explore their prior understanding as they encounter the new material. So first of all, we have to frame the intended learning outcome for our particular topic. Based on those intended learning outcome, we have to decide the particular instructional practices, that is the pedagogy. Which kind of pedagogy will be useful to get the intended learning outcome. Now, after fulfilling the second stage of teaching learning cycle, we have to proceed after that the third thing of this teaching learning cycle, that is the assessment. We have teach in the class. After that, we have to assess the student. So assessments are of two types. One is the assessment for learning, and the another is the assessment of learning. So during the teaching learning cycle, whatever assessment we check, like if we take the class test, if we do the quiz, if we do the debate, that come under assessment for learning. Now, after the completion of the topic, for suppose if we talk about the half yearly examination, so in this process, whatever we have covered, that will come under the assessment of learning. So this is the third stage of teaching learning cycle. After that, we have to see the reflection of the assessment. So we always have to try to find out whether we have achieved our goal in the form of intended learning outcome or not. Always we have to ask, does this activity really help students to meet the learning expectation on which the assessment is based? If it's not, it may be possible that subject activity is very good, but it does not really help to address the intended learning outcome. So we can consider this type of activity for the subject enrichment. So if we talk about the teaching learning cycle, this can be utilized to any content area. It may be any subject, Hindi, English, mathematics, social science. And it's what is its goal? Its goal is to create the motivational learning environment in the class where students are actively engaged, they explore, they discuss, and they synthesize the new information based on their learning. And it causes the lasting change in the student concept. Each step has a specific purpose. Like I talk about, the first stage is LO, that is learning outcome. The second is the instructional practice. Third is the assessment. And fourth is the reflection. So NCRT has developed the learning outcome document, which is very easily available on the NCERT website. It is developed in three languages. One is the Urdu, another is Hindi, and English. So if you want to explore these documents, how the learning outcome can be designed, it is available on the website. So when we form the learning outcome has the basic structure. It always begins with the sentence, my students will be able to analyze, my students will be able to compare, contrast, they will be able to understand, and after that we have to use the appropriate verb that I already told you, the analysis, understanding, applying. These are the verbs which we have to use in the learning outcome. And each learning outcome sentence end with the object of the statement. Now, what is the object of the statement? Whatever the content of the teaching we are teaching in the class, that will be the object of the learning outcome. So, learning outcome has three components. If we talk about, one is the performance, another is the condition, and third is the criteria. So, what the children will be able to perform, that will come under the performance. Under what condition they will perform, we have to be very, very specific. The condition can include the tools, situation, setting, restriction that will direct the activity. After that, under which criteria these learning outcome we have to assess, that decide the criteria. So criteria describe the required level of quality of performance. Criteria can be described in the terms of accuracy, productivity level, time, and the degree of excellence. Characteristic of a good learning outcome. Whenever we frame the learning outcome, a learning outcome should be SMART. SMART stands for, S stands for specific. Our learning outcome should be very specific. Whatever we want to achieve after teaching in the class, it should be very, very specific. Like, my children, after teaching in the class, my children will achieve what? It should be measurable. Like, if you are not able to measure your learning outcome, then the learning outcome purpose will get defeat. The third thing is the attainable. The learning outcome will be attainable. It should finish in the particular span of time. If it takes a lot of time, the purpose again defeat. It should be relevant. The learning outcome should be relevant to the topic. In the beginning, I told you, if we have decided an activity and if that activity is not able to meet the intended learning outcome, then we have to take as a subject enrichment activity. So always remember, whenever you form the learning outcome, it should be relevant to the topic. It should be time frame. If we are talking about a particular topic learning outcome, that should get finished within the specified time frame. If we will remember all these characteristics of the learning outcome, then we are able to achieve our outcome or the target area of the content. When we frame the learning outcome, it has the three parts. One is the subject, the second is verb, and third is the object. Now, what is the subject in the learning outcome? The student is the subject. And verb, we have to, I will explain you in the later stage of the presentation what kind of verb we can use. There are three domains in the Bloom's taxonomy. So each domain I will explain you in detail. So the sentence, if we would like to form for the learning outcome, the student will be able to analyze. So student is the subject, will be analyzed as the verb, and the object is the content. So these
Sorry to
are,
interrupt you, ma'am. I was asking ki if any by anyhow you are sharing your PPT, like it is not visible to us. If you are sharing any PPT,
yeah, I am sharing. It's not over there.
no, ma'am,
Okay,
it is
okay,
not over there.
okay, fine. Now PPT is visible to you.
Yes, ma'am. Now it is
Oh,
visible.
okay, fine. Thank you. So I was talking about the learning outcome. So the characteristic of learning outcome is, as I told you, it is the every learning outcome should be SMART. That is a specific, measurable, attainable. It should be relevant and the time bound. When we talk about the format of the learning outcome, every learning outcome has a common format. It consists of subject, verb, and object. So when we frame, we have to see that each student will be able to use word processing, spreadsheet, database, and the presentation in preparing in their final research project and report. So if we talk about here, each student, this is the object, what they are able to use, the word processing, spreadsheet, database, if I am teaching a computer as a subject. So this will be able to use will be my verb, and these all are my object. Fine. So how, while framing the learning outcome, we have to keep this in mind that there are three domains of learning. This is called the cognitive domain, psychomotor domain, and affective domain. They are also known as 3H, where we are using our brain that come under cognitive domain. If we use the fine motor skill or the gross motor skill along with the cognitive domain, then it is called psychomotor domain. When we use our feeling or when we use our tasting buds, then it come under the affective domain. So it is also known as CAP, that is CAP, cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domain. So whenever we frame the learning outcome, we always have to construct our verb based on the Bloom's taxonomy. The Bloom taxonomy has two levels: remember, apply, understanding. These come under the lower level of learning, and the higher level of learning is the analysis, evaluate, and create. This Bloom's taxonomy is revised in 2001, and there is a slight change happened. So earlier, the Bloom's taxonomy was termed as a knowledge, that is replaced in 2001 by remembering. These are called the action verb. Comprehension is substituted by understanding, application by applying, analysis by analyzing, and synthesis is the highest level of learning domain in the revised Bloom's taxonomy. So when we frame our learning outcome, we have to see whether it is related to the cognitive domain or it is related to the affective domain. If we talk about the affective domain, it has 5 levels of learning. The first one is the receiving. That is the very lower level of the learning in the affective domain. It refers to the student's willingness to attend a particular phenomena of the stimulus. The second level of the affective domain is the responding. Whatever we teach in the class, if the student is able to respond that is come under the responding. The third level of the affective domain is valuing. It is concerned with the worth or a value of a student attached to a particular object, phenomena, or behavior. The fourth level of the affective domain is the organization. It is related to the value to those which is already held and bring into the harmonious and internally consistent philosophy. The highest level of the affective domain is the characterization. The individual has a value system that has controlled his or her behavior for sufficiently long time for him or her to develop a characteristic of lifestyle. So when we frame the learning outcome, we have to always remember that we have to cover the cognitive domain and few levels of the affective domain and the psychomotor domain in order to make the teaching learning cycle very effective. So if we talk about the psychomotor domain, it has again the 5 level. One is called the imitation. So if I say I am teaching how to play badminton, so when I show the racket and the shuttlecock, and the child is able to handle the shuttlecock and the racket, that is the come under imitation. Now, when we do more practice and the child is able to handle the situation, what kind of shots he or she getting while playing the badminton, it come under the manipulation. When they do lot of practice, then it will become the very precision based. So they are able to handle the odd situation also. Or if we talk about that, if I am learning driving, so when I start, I have to imitate as my mentor of the driving. When I do continuous practice, then it become my muscle memory. So it come under the precision. So under uh, odd condition, if I able to handle the situation while driving, then it come into the articulation. When I drive, if I am able to listen the music, I am able to do certain other work along with my driving, then it become my muscle memory, and that is called the naturalization. So it is the highest level of the psychomotor domain. The verb which we use over while framing the learning outcome, that is very first level, if we want, like copy, follow, mimic, repeat, or the replicate. Under manipulation, the verb is used act, follow, build, implement, and produce. Under precision level of the psychomotor domain, complete accurately, control, perfect, perform, show, or demonstrate. In articulation, if we want to tell them, combine two things, contrast and compare, coordinate, these come under the articulation. And based on the highest level of learning, if we say design an ape, design a particular concept based on the particular concept, then it come under the naturalization, that is the highest level of psycho domain learning. So there are few things. If you are able to see my screen, you will find that these are the comparative verbs of the different domain of the Bloom's taxonomy. Now, I am showing you the different kind of learning outcome. Like if I talk about identify the noun and their kinds. So it come under the cognitive domain and very first level of the Bloom's taxonomy cognitive domain, that is the remembering. If I write the learning outcome, assess whether a bulb in the given circuit will glow or not. So again, it is related to the cognitive domain and it is come under the label re-evaluating. Measure the time period of a simple pendulum using stopwatch. Here, we are using the psychomotor domain where the student have to do the practical thing. They have to use their brain as well as their hands movement. The fourth is the design a model to show the movement of Earth. अभी आपको रुकना पड़ेगा, मैं काम कर रही हूँ। आधे घंटे बात करूंगी। If we say list various parts of a speech, so it come under again the cognitive domain, but it is a second level of learning. When we compare and contrast the place value and the face value of a given number, it is again, if we talk about the domain, it will come under the cognitive domain because it is related to the brain. Limit the intake of carbonated drink after learning about the acidic nature. So here the children are using their affective domain, that is, they are feeling, they are tasting, and they are reflecting why it is useful or not. If we say plan a strategy to deal with the situation created in the neighborhood by the natural disaster, again it come under the cognitive domain, but here the child is planning a strategy. So it is coming under the highest level of the cognitive domain, that is the creating. Compare and contrast the characteristic of the drama. Again, it is the part of the cognitive domain, but here the children will able to analyze. They have the knowledge, then they are analyzing the thing. If we take another example, like calculate a value of one division on a given thermometer. So they are using their knowledge, they are applying their knowledge over here, which is the part of cognitive domain. Prepare an acid base indicator from the extract of the colored flour. In this learning outcome, the child is using the psychomotor domain, and the level will be the organization level. Relate the common features of a democratic government and secular form of governance. It is again the child is analyzing based on his prior knowledge. Propose a plan to stop using a single-use plastic after learning of their non-biodegradable nature. This come under the affective domain, and we are talking about the value, creating a value in the child, in the learner. Select the correct statement from the given sentence. So it come under again the cognitive domain, and we are talking about the level, that is the re-evaluating. The child is able to evaluate, again it is the higher level of the learning outcome. So if we want to frame the learning outcome, we have to make sure that we will take the cognitive domain, we have to take the learning outcome which affect the psychomotor domain of the child, and it also affect the affective domain of the child. So when we incorporate all the domains while framing our learning outcome, then the teaching will become successful. Now, after framing the learning outcome, we have to keep in mind that we have to inculcate the 21st century competencies in the student, because it is very, very important. We are seeing that the technology is rapidly changing in our life every day. We are facing we are seeing the lot of changes in the technology. Everywhere we are talking about the AI. There are a lot of AI tools in our day-to-day life we are encountering. So we have to prepare our children for those kind of competencies which is required in the present scenario. The first competencies related to the 21st century is the creativity and innovation. If child is creative and they are able to innovate the new things, then they are ready, we will make them ready for the 21st century. Why we have to emphasize on the creativity? Because when we prepare the students in the class for the new environment, then our teaching will become successful. Creative education is when the students are able to use their imagination and the critical thinking to create new and meaningful forms of ideas, where they can take the risk, be independent and the flexible. Coming up, with the various out of the box solution is known as the divergent thinking. So we have to prepare our children to become the divergent thinkers, not the rote learner. How we can create the creativity in the classroom? Do not limit your assignment to the one format. For example, instead of limiting the student to write the assignment, they can create a podcast, they can create a video, they can role play, they can make or the create a poem based on their literature, they can compose the song. So in this way, we can create the creativity, we can bring the creativity in the class. Do not set the time limit while framing the learning outcome because creativity needs time. It is not possible that within a period, the student is able to create a poem, or they can create a podcast, or they can make a video. So we have to give time to think, to invoke their divergent thinking. They can use technology to broaden their horizon. So they can use the Google Map. Now, if I talk about the Google Map, every day we are using Google Map for moving here and there. Now tell me, can we use the Google Map to teach the physics concept? I would like to know in the chat box, can we use the Google Map to teach the physics? Please give me yes or no in the chat box. I'm not able to see. Yes, definitely we can use. Now, can you tell me how we can use the Google Map in the physics? Please um, write the short thing in the chat box. We can teach the distance and displacement by using the Google Map. If we integrate with the geography, the class will make more interactive. Please introduce the unconventional learning material into the class if you want to introduce creativity and the innovation in the classroom. Use the educational podcast videos such as Radio Lab and the TED Talks. The TED Talks are very common in the YouTube channels. So that TED Talks you can bring into your classroom and make an innovative class. The second competency which we talk about is the critical thinking and problem solving. Critical thinking means we are able to present the evidence for our ideas, analyzing the way we think instead of simple learning facts without ever questioning. Kindly promote the questions in the class because when the students are more curious to your classroom, they will gain more knowledge. Always try to fulfill their curiosity. Now, while we have to talk about the critical thinking, because we have to prepare the student for the jobs that doesn't exist yet. If I talk about the prompt engineering to all of you, how many are know about the prompt engineering? I would like to know in the chat box. How many aware about the prompt engineering? If you know about the prompt engineering, please type yes. If you don't, please type no. How many are using the prompt engineering with ChatGPT? Yes or no? I'm not able to see anything. Okay. So the prompt engineering is the command which we have to give the AI tools or the ChatGPT. If I want to get something, then we must have to know how to prompt the AI tools. That is called the prompt engineering. So, see, uh, half of the people know what is the prompt engineering, and some are doesn't know what is the prompt engineering. So, we all are in the learning phase. So, we have to create such kind of thinking in the class so they are able to know, and we have to make them ready for 21st century. Critical thinking improves the students' flexibility and the learning skills. It essence of the democracy. Critical thinking makes education less passive and more interactive. It helps the student to express their ideas in a better manner. Critical thinking also help in making next generation more adaptable to the changes. If we see, we use the technology a lot, but very less proportion of the population are using the technology in a correct manner. So if we make them ready how to use the technology in a correct manner, that also become the part of teaching learning process. Now, capacity for lifelong learning. This is the another competency which we have to talk about. The lifelong learning is defined as all learning activity undertaken throughout life. We all are lifelong learners. Teachers are considered as lifelong learners. Along with the student, we also learning a lot of new things, which we have seen during the pandemic. We become the techno savvy. Prior to the pandemic, we were not so much techno savvy. Now we are effectively using these Zoom meetings for connecting with each other. We are connected with the other country people also. So we are learning. We are all our learners. So this is come under the lifelong learning. The concept of lifelong learning has become a vital importance with the emergence of the new technologies that change how we have received and gather the information, collaborate with other. That is the finest example right now. We are doing the collaboration with each other, and we are learning from each other a lot, and we are communicating. So if we bring the lifelong learning concept in the class, it will become very helpful for the preparing student for the 21st century. Students can take up the community service assignment for the successful concept of the study circle. This idea is almost launched in a centuries ago, which is still represent the large portion of the adult education provision. This concept has come from the Finland, where a study circle is one of the most democratic form of the learning environment that has been created. So in this kind of learning, there are no teachers. The group of the people, those who want to become the part of the teaching learning thing, they decide on what content will be covered, what scope they have to use, as well as the delivery method also. This is mainly used in the adult literacy of the dropouts. The fourth competency we talk about, that is the collaboration. That is very, very important. The student must know what is the collaboration. The collaborative learning is the most ideal approach to learning given as it enables students to benefit from the guidance from their peers and the teachers. Now, what is the collaborative learning? It is a process in which the multiple individuals come together to learn by tapping each other's prior knowledge, skills, and resources through the active discussion, which we are doing right now. This is a very good example of the collaborative learning. In collaborative learning, all members of the group are accountable to each other in completing the common task. Debates, collaborative writing assignments, role plays, and the study teams all fall under this category. Now, why we have to do the collaborative learning? Because it develops the higher level of thinking. It enhances the oral communication of the student. The students are able to do the self management, and we can create the leadership skills among the students. It also promotes the student faculty interaction, and it increases the student retention in the school, because with the collaboration that we are able to enhance the more learning outcome and the self-esteem of the student and the responsibility. They will get more exposure, and they increase in understanding of the diverse perspective, because perception is the thing which is different from person to person. If I am seeing something uh, different from the other person, because my perception is totally different, so I will give the different kind of opinion, and you will give the different kind of opinion. So it widen our perception also if we bring the collaboration in the teaching learning cycle. The most important competency which is required for the 21st century is the communication. Communication competency refers to the ability to articulate idea and thoughts in variety of forms and context. More specifically, it is the ability to listen effectively so as to understand the main points being made by others, and to utilize different modes of communication as appropriate for the specific purpose. The next very important competency, that is the citizenship and the character, which is also the part of the sustainable development goal. Citizenship and the character competency refers to the ability to guide individual actions as a person for the common good of the community, so that individual uses personal values for the service of society, community, while values and characters are very personal by their very natural. Personal citizenship is a very public concept. Now, why we have to use this competency in our teaching learning cycle? Because it has the immense importance, especially in our increasingly global context. We are confronted so many choices every day, and the choices we make as an individual have the repercussion on the community we live. We are seeing the rising temperature, the global temperature is rising every day because of the human activities. So, if we do anything as an individual, it has the large impact on the global context as well. So, a student can be made aware of his role, his responsibility, his right at different level of his existence as an individual, as a member of his class, as a student of the school, as a resident of a locality, and as a citizen of the state, and as a global citizen. This allows him to make choices based on his awareness and the values that he holds. So, when we frame our learning outcome, we have to make sure that we are preparing not only the citizen of a country, but we are preparing the citizen of the global level, because every action of the student always count on the lesser or the higher amount on the global context. The citizenship and character help them to make choices that are defensible, informed, not only serve their own interest, but also think about the larger community. So we have to prepare the global citizen, not only the citizen of the country, not only the citizen of the state or the local community. We always have to keep in mind that we are preparing the children for the future. The last competency is the computational thinking. Please write down in the chat box, without using technology, can we introduce the computational thinking in the learning cycle? I'm waiting for your responses. Please give your responses. Can we introduce computational thinking without using technology in the class? Yes or no? Only you have to type yes or no. Yes, we can use the computational thinking. There is one yes from SS. Yes. Ms. Ritu Chahal has mentioned yes. Yes. Very good. Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for your responses. We can introduce computational thinking without using technology in the class because the computational thinking refers to the thought process that involves in formulating a problem and its solution in a step-by-step sequences of simple operation that can be understood by a computer or a human both. So what is a computational thinking? It is the critical thinking skill and the power of computing. So when we talk about the computational thinking, it has 4 steps. The very first step is the decomposition of the problem. If we bring a problem into the class as a content of the teaching material, then we have to tell a student to decompose into the fragment. And then they have to break problem into the parts. Then the third step of the computational thinking is the algorithm writing. How, if you see any computer programming, there is an algorithm. If the programming is right, the coding is right, you will get the correct result. So similarly, without using technology, we can inculcate the computational thinking into the child. We have to bring a problem. We have to ask for the solution. We have to tell them what kind of a stage is required to solve a problem. And the fourth is the abstraction part, which is the last part of the computational thinking. So they have to generalize the pattern and they have to make the trends into the rules, principle, and insight. Now, how can you introduce in your classroom teaching when we teach the computational thinking? So you can take one example. We can say prepare the idea for making trip to the museum. It is a very simple thing. So when children write down the steps to how to organize the trip from beginning to the ending, so they are able to break the process. Or we can tell them compare the trees. All trees have the roots, all trees have the branches, they have the stem. But all the stems are having the different kind of thickness. Some are thin, some are thick. If we talk about the leaf, leaves are again the different types. So when they prepare the collage of the different kind of trees, when they compare and contrast by using the cognitive domain, they are able to provoke their computational thinking. After that, they have to write the abstraction, what they have learned after the compare and contrast of the different kind of trees, how the roots are different, but they are able to understand the main thing which is common. Like if we see the computation programming coding, it is the ABAB pattern or the 0 to 1. So similarly, if we talk about the um, different kind of trees, all trees are having roots, all trees are having a stem, all trees are having the leaves, but they are different in the different types. So all these kind of thing when you bring into the classroom, so you can provoke the computational thinking into the classroom. Now, the second part of the teaching learning cycle, after framing the learning outcome, intended learning outcome, and keep in mind these 21st century competencies, we have to decide which kind of pedagogy is used for the particular learning outcome. So I am showing you the different kind of pedagogies which we can use in the classroom. So pedagogy is the different kind of art. It is the art of pedagogy is the art, science and profession of teaching. It is all about learning different and better teaching methods. Pedagogical skills refer to the skill and techniques employed by the teacher to ensure effective and thorough knowledge of learning. They help us ensure that our students can comprehend and apply their knowledge in real life situation very easily. Whenever we go to the class, we always have to take the real life example in the classroom if you want to teach effectively in the class, because when we teach through the real life example, the students are able to correlate the content very effectively. Their retention will be long lasting, and you are able to assess them very effectively. So there are different kind of pedagogies. So if we talk about the NEP 2020, we know that it is the framework of 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. So the very first level is the foundational level where we are incorporating the class from nursery to class 2. So what kind of pedagogy we have to use for this kind of level? We have to use the play-based or the activity-based pedagogies in order to demonstrate the knowledge or to teach something to the student, because learning by doing is very important in the early stage. When the children come to class 3 to 5, the pedagogy which we can use very effectively in the classroom is the inquiry based, exploration based and the discovery based. When the children go to the middle section, that is class 6 to 8, here we have to use the experiential learning. When the children do the activity, hands-on experiment, then the learning will be long lasting. When they come to the senior section, we have to provoke their critical thinking, we have to provoke their computational thinking. So here we have to use the competency based education or the pedagogy. The very first pedagogy we have to use, that is the collaborative learning, which I already discussed in the form of the competency. So children have to make proactive during the learning process. When we use the collaborative learning, bring collaborative learning into the class, which help them to understand each other's perception and the views. The third benefit of the collaborative learning is we are able to develop their thinking ability. They are able to think out of the box. We will be able to the habit of taking and giving constructive criticism, because when they learn in a collaborative manner, so they will listen the opinion of the other student also, and they are able to create their own opinion based on the knowledge they are gaining into the class. It has also helped to build the public speaking and the active listening skills, because listening is equally important as compared to the speaking. The last, not but the least, it helped the student to develop teamwork capability, because the 21st century is the collaborative teamwork based technologies are coming. So we have to prepare the student for the 21st century. So we can take some example of the active learning method: think, pair, share. They collaborate in the groups. We can bring games into the class. We can bring debates into the class. The student have to debate on the various topics, so we can enhance their thinking ability. They have to analyze the reaction. They have to give the reaction by watching the videos, by listening the podcast. They can able to give their views based on the podcast. We can tell them that they have to do the various analysis of the various case study. We have to bring the case studies into the class. We can keep the journals or the logs. They have to write and produce a newsletter into the school, so they can contribute. They are able to learn a lot of new things. We can bring into the concept of mapping in the classroom. The second kind of pedagogy we can use, that is the project based learning. It has a lot of benefit, and it are the elements of the project based learning. Is the first, we need to know what is the problem. We have to bring a problem into the classroom. Then we must have the significant content for that problem. Then the children have to make the presentation based on that problem. They have to reflect and again revise, and then they have to produce the new things, where we have to use the 21st century skills. They have to give their presentation, and then we have to tell them that they have to frame the question based on their project. Some example of project based learning: they can design an app, they can plan a garden. So when they create the landscape of a garden, they have to bring the divergent thinking in their mind. They can analyze the viral web content. They can We can say them how to start a business, prepare the strategy, how to start a startup program, how to give the pitch, how to bring the material into the classroom. They can design a city, so they have to think a lot when they design a city. What are the requirements? How they have to manage the waste? How they have to manage the electricity? There are various components of the designing in the city. They can restore something from beautiful. If we are creating the lot of waste, if that waste, if they are able to create something new, so that is also come under the project based learning. They can create a family tree at the small classes. We can use this kind of project based learning. How to solve the fake news problem. This is the era of lot of information. So some information are real, some information are fake. So our children must know how to analyze which one is the real, which is relevant, and which is irrelevant. The another pedagogy we can bring into the classroom, that is the inquiry based pedagogy. So in this pedagogy, the student have to investigate their surrounding, then they have to narrow the focus on a particular kind of investigation, then they have to prepare the comparative question based on that content, then they have to uncover the prediction. Based on their prediction, they have to initiate an action plan, and they have to do the research and data collection based on that action plan. And last part of that inquiry based pedagogy, they have to examine the result and they have to communicate the findings which we are doing in the DKIF, that we are working on the research based pedagogy. So this come under the inquiry pedagogy. So this inquiry learning cycle has different part. First is I wonder. I have to notice my surrounding. I have to ask the question. I have to state a problem. Then investigate. That I told you already, that we have to plan, we have to read, research, we have to do the field work, we have to prepare a questionnaire, we have to take the interviews based on our investigation. Then I have to record those investigation or the data, then organize. So if you see this inquiry learning cycle, we are touching each level of cognitive domain of the Bloom's taxonomy one by one. First, I have understand, then I have to apply, then recreate, analyze, synthesize, evaluate. So all domains we touch when we use this inquiry based learning in the class. We can use the another pedagogy in the classroom, that is called flipping the class. The teacher will act as a student and a student act as a teacher. So this is called the flipping classroom, which we have done a lot during the pandemic time. It is a very efficient and reusable pedagogy. We can control learning. It is a cost effective implementation in the class. We can present the content very effectively in the class, and it is the best engaged classroom learning where the students are engaged, explore, and synthesize the information. There is another kind of pedagogy that is called case based learning. So when you see these different kind of pedagogies, you will be able to find out that in some or the another kind of pedagogy, we are touching all the domains of learning, that is the cognitive domain, psychomotor domain, and the affective domain, to in order to give the rich learning experience to the student, so they will have the long lasting impression of their learning. So in this case based learning, first of all, we have to establish the learning outcome. That is the first step of the teaching learning cycle. Then we have to assign the different role to the student. Then we have to motivate the student. So the student will be able to create the strategy document, and we have to develop educational activities, and finally they have to present the solution to the problem. So these are the different parts of the case based learning. Now the next pedagogy is the lab based pedagogy, where we take the student into the lab, they will do the hands on experiment. So learning by doing will give always the 99% learning outcome, and you will be able to assess very effectively. So laboratory teaching assumes that first hand experiment in the observation and manipulation of the material of science is the superior to the other methods of developing understanding and appreciation. Laboratory training is also frequently used to develop skills necessary for more advanced study or research. The very important, that is the experiential learning pedagogy, which we generally use for the middle section students. So this is a goal-based cycle of experiential learning. So first we have to bring into the class the active experimentation. Then we have to bring the concrete experience. They have to do learning by doing. Then we have to reflect the observation, and then they have to extract the conceptualization, that is again coming under the computational thinking, the last competencies which we have discussed. So the concrete experience, the learner cannot learn merely by reading or observing. He needs to actively participate in the experience by feeling it with all five senses. The idea is to immerse into the experience and learn. The second stage is the reflective observation, where the learner reflects at the situation before forming any opinion. The learner must reflect upon the present by connecting it to his past experience. Reflective observation focuses on the observing and the perceiving. More the child will perceive, more will be the learning happen in the class. The abstract conceptualization is the in this stage the learners gather and analyze the information and draws the conclusion. That is the highest level of learning under the cognitive domain of the Bloom's taxonomy. Sometimes it may challenge the pre-existing concept. This focuses on the learning by thinking. The fourth stage, that is the active experimentation. This is the final stage where the learner applies what he has learned while learning by doing. The learner can enter in a learning cycle at any stage, but must go through all four stages to complete this learning cycle. Thank you so much. This is all from my side. Thank you for patiently listening to me. I hope you will get something out of this. Thank you so much for making me the part of this wonderful evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It won't be wrongly said that you have with all those gems out of the world put it into one single PPT and one single place, and like whatever you have told us, whatever you have taught us, like I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope all others must have got something from it.
Ma'am, very good evening to you. Good evening, Mr.
Good
Kumar
evening,
Guru.
sir.
Good evening, Bikaji. Good evening, everyone present here.
So,
It was really nice, although I have been keeping off and on because of a lot of work, busy with lot of work. Uh, but then I have been able to have, what I find is that these seven C's are very important, and this should be inculcated in teachers by teachers in them. Try to imbibe in themselves creativity and innovation, critical thinking and problem solving, capacity for lifelong learning, collaboration, communication, citizenship, and character, computational thinking. I think these seven C's one should always keep in mind, and entire thing would be, you know, covered. Another thing is that, as you know, that as all of us know, that DKIF is a pioneer in promoting research amongst schools and colleges. So we are the DKIF is the first organization which started this, and research has all these seven C's within it, right? So even if you think of research, these seven C's gets absorbed into it. So that research mindset, if we start creating in the students, inculcating in the students, you know, uh, the entire problem will get sorted out. Uh, we just have to remember these seven C's, or you just have to remember the research based teaching and learning pedagogy, and you'll find that your classroom gets so interesting. This has been done by Prerna ma'am, uh, who is the principal with Ganga International School, Sauda Delhi, which is a unit of Ganga Group of institutions in India. And Vikas sir is also a teacher over there. He teaches science, and he's a PGT, I think. So, these two people have been trying for the past 2 years to inculcate research mindset amongst their students. And you'll not, believe this, that the students are so much engrossed into research. Their whole complete mindset has changed. They have become so competitive, and they take so much of interest. Whenever we put some contest for research based, which we'll also do on this platform, we'll do a virtual research presentation here. Uh, that will be by the students, few of the students. Whenever there is contest, uh, there is so much competition to put their name in that contest by Ganga International School and other schools who have already adopted this. So I would like that this one, in India, it has taken a lot of appreciation, and it is going up day by day. And I would like the same thing to happen in Sri Lanka, which I'll always seek help from Mr. Kamal Goda Sahab, and will create such environment over there in Sri Lanka and the associated countries with the International Association for Quality Education. So once again, I'm so grateful, ma'am. Thank you so much for such a wonderful uh, session for the teachers.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It is a very wonderful session. You explain about the teacher learning cycles. You explain learning outcomes. You explain 21st century competencies, different kind of pedagogy, assessments. All you explain very nicely, very properly. Not only the teachers, anyone can understand your explanation. You explain very nicely. DKIF, Dr. Kalam International Foundation, and our International Association for Quality Education, both associations work together to give valuable knowledge to the young educators, to the society, to the South Asian region. Not only the South Asian region, educators in global society. DKF have selected very wonderful, very experienced, talented resource persons for the capacity development of the teachers, for the capacity development of educators. As Sudhakarji explained, we can do a lot of things, not only for the Sri Lanka, not only for the India. As educators, all of us work to achieve the sustainable development goal number 4, quality education. Capacity development is the main important thing to achieve the sustainable development goal number 4, quality education. Therefore, we hope to do a lot of things, lot of works with the DKIF to achieve quality education, to do valuable contribution to the society, to the world, to enhance the quality of the education. On behalf of the Sri Lanka, on behalf of the International Association for Quality Education, I want to thank DKIF, Dr. Kalam International Foundation, Dr. Mr. Sudhakarji, Rashmi ma'am, and Sweta ma'am, and all team for the wonderful session. And especially we want to thank today's resource person speaker, Prerna ma'am. You did excellent job. Thanks a lot for you. Thank you very much.